You've been a lot of fun, bud. Hello, folks, and welcome to this episode of Michael's Backyard Marina. It's time to pluck the old 2.5 liter, 120 horse Mercruiser out of this 1973 Larson boat that has absolutely completely rotted out. We're going to do something interesting. I would call it a little bit interesting with this engine. Is I'm going to pull it out, put it on a stand, and I'm going to strip all the wiring harness out of here with all the gauges and the starter switch and all that fun stuff, and mount that on another plate. And I'm going to create, in another video, not this one, another video, test stands, if you will. So that if I come up to another boat similar to this that has a Mercruiser in it, say a 3 liter or 2.5 liter or a multitude of years, that I could come up to it, unplug the current harness, which could have issues, right? Plug in my known good harness into that plug, because these things have one socket plug in, and add a battery and add some coolant, you know, water, garden hose, whatever, and start attempting to start it up, you know, go through my systematic process. But first we got to get this engine pulled out of here, and in order to get this engine pulled out of here, I got to do a little bit of work on the trailer. And I say that because the trailer has its own little issues, and I want to get this boat and trailer as low to the ground as possible so my engine hoist can pick it up and pluck it out of here and clear the transom. Now, if you watched the first video of me bringing this home and talking about some of the issues I had bringing it home, where the lug nuts fell, or lug bolts fell off, all but one, and the fact that the one only had 3 lug bolts to start with on the other side, and how the hub was ground off. I'm going to show you that in a minute. Actually, I'm going to show you that right now. But I was able to grab hubs off another axle I had that was just an axle and springs laying around that had a bent axle. But it's like, it's got hubs on it. Maybe it's something I can salvage. Well, sure enough, I did. They were a little rusty, but I cleaned them up. We knocked the bearings out. We're going to knock some new bearings in them, and we're going to get those bearings on back on here on this trailer. And I got some of these little tiny, I'll get one to show you. I got these little tiny trailer tires that are these, what are they, 8-inch? 480 by 8s with a 5-hole pattern in it. Seems crazy, right? Well, I'm going to put that on here so that this thing can sit on its own wheels as close to the ground as possible to make it easy. That's my ridiculousness. It's going to look funny, but we're going to use this wheel to do 2 things. Get it closer to the ground, and when it's all plucked out of there, we're going to drag it on these particular pair of wheels to the dump. Now, I've kept these around here. I've got, you know, several wheels that I've just pulled off different trailers. If the trailer's junk, whatever I've done, and I hang on to them for, I don't know what reason, but my wife gives me a hard time about, you got a lot of junk around here. But my junk comes in handy. Saves me from spending a lot of money on having to buy new stuff to do what the old stuff can do for me. Makes sense? Let's get in there. I'm going to go in the shop here. We're going to do a real quick job. I'm going to show you a couple quick tips or a couple things I do just to bring some wheel hubs back around, and then I'm going to show you that wheel hub that's ground off. I mean, it's like, you look at this one and you come across here and it's ground off. It almost got into the hub itself, or the center part. So we're going to do that. All right, what I have here is a brand new bearing kit. These are 1-inch bearings. That means this 1-inch bearing kit is a straight 1-inch axle that's out there on that trailer. You get new bearings, new races, and this kit came with 2 new caps, 2 seals, 2 new cotter pins. That should be enough to overhaul this bad boy. First thing we got to do is take the races out of 2 of these bearings and install them into the hub on both sides. Now, in order to install these bearings, I've got a punch. I don't have a bearing installer yet. Someday, maybe. I use my big punch and my ball peen hammer, and I start tapping these in. And you want to make sure you're going in straight. Light tap should seat it right in there. when you're getting close to the bottom, you'll hear the tone change. We'll listen for it here. Right there. Now you want to make sure you hear that sound and that you hit it all the way around and make sure it's completely seated. Because if you don't, and you put your wheel bearing in there and you're running down the highway and that bearing under pressure actually seats, this is going to get really loose on the axle and that will be no good for you. Let's go ahead and stick the other one in. Now if you haven't purchased one of these bearing packers and you say, oh, I don't need that, I'll just pack it by hand because it's just as easy, you're lying to yourself. You're kidding yourself. Because there's no way to pack a bearing faster than how you pack it with this guy. That's all there is to it. Once I pack my wheel bearings, I go ahead and take some extra grease and lube the crap out of the inside of my hub. Put all the extra grease in there that you can. That's fine. It's not going to hurt anything. Now me, I use a wooden block and a hammer. Knock that seal down flush. You don't want to go past flush. There's no need to go past flush. Knock it down flush. Usually, most generally, this surface is somewhat square with the bore, and that's going to work just fine. Now once we got that done, we'll take and put grease inside here and we'll set our outboard bearing down in there and we're ready to go back on the trailer. Okay, here's the wheel hub I've been talking about. As you can see, it should have 4 lugs and that's ground off within less than a ½ inch of that area right there. Isn't that crazy? You drug it a while, obviously. Now, I wasn't trying to protect that cap at all. Somebody drilled a hole in it. Or maybe it had a rubber plug in it at some time, or somebody tried to make a bearing buddy out of it. I don't know. I just know this whole hub is junk. And I've got new stuff to put in it. Now, I don't wear gloves on a lot of things. But when it comes to wheel bearing grease and other nastiness, I just find it easier to throw in a pair of gloves, keep my hands a lot cleaner, so I can go from one dirty step to the clean step. Yeah, these bearings got pits in them. Not too many old trailer axles do I find, or wheel bearings do I find, that don't already have just a whole bunch of pits in it. I find it pretty quick and easy to take a little brake cleaner, spray down your axle, get it cleaned up, ready for your new setup. All right, once we got everything cleaned up, we're ready to go ahead and slip everything back together. Now what I tend to do here is I'll take and tighten this bearing up so that it's tight. Then I'll go ahead and back it off. Like that'd be way too tight there because the cotter pin's that way. I'll back it off an entire slot and say that's good right there. And we'll go ahead and install our cotter pin back, new cotter pin in. We'll go ahead and bend it on around. Once your cotter pin's installed, everything's adjusted properly, as you can see here. We'll go ahead and install our brandy new bearing cap, and I use a soft face hammer when I install these. Now that that's all in place, we can install our wheel. A little baby wheel. I do put never seize on all my lug nuts because they tend to get rusty and not want to let go eventually. All right, we're working on pulling the engine here. We're gonna extract this from this carcass of a boat. A couple of things you need to do. Now this one is nice for visualization for you guys because it's really exposed in this area where other boats are covered up quite a ways into here. We have removed the fuel line coming from the tank, so that's free. We need, what else do we do? Oh, this line that's back here that runs from the front of the engine to the back. This is your water inlet from your outdrive pump right back here. I think you can see where I'm pointing at, yep. And then you got your wiring harness plug right here. It looks like that. Unplugs from here. This is all affixed to the engine. The engine wiring goes from here forward. So when you disconnect that, you've disconnected all the wiring. Now, some of the wiring we still need to disconnect is like this ground wire from the block. That's going to this hydraulic pump. That'll be one stray wire, and the positive wire coming off the starter going to the hydraulic pump. So it's just nice to take these ground wires loose, unhook all these other wires so you don't have to deal with them when you're picking up the boat. What else was there? I did on this other side here, on this exhaust manifold, there's two pipe clamps around that rubber boot. I have loosened that, so when I pick up here and lift this motor straight up, I'll be able to pry on that a little bit and get that rubber to let go of that exhaust manifold, and we're done. Now, typically you would have to undo the front motor mount. That would typically be up here, but this motor mount was rusted away, rotted away, the wood pieces were, so we don't have to deal with that one. It's hanging out there. A few of you made a comment, it's like, isn't there supposed to be a front motor mount? Yeah, absolutely there's supposed to be. It's over here on the ground already. It came home in a box because the floor and all that mounting wood was rotted away. So now I believe, and I'll correct myself if I'm wrong, there's two bolts. There's one here, and there's one on the other side, exact opposite of here. I do believe if I take that one off and that one off, I can lift this engine straight up out of this boat. Alrighty, we got the old 120 horse Mercruiser engine hanging on the stand here, or hanging on the hoist here. As you can see in the back, there's only two bolts. And some spacers and whatever else under here. Fibrous washers that this sat on in the back of the boat. On the front has been the ever missing front engine mount that goes right here. This normally would be on the front of the engine supporting it down to the bottom of the boat, bolted in. This has been out the whole time this video has been made because where this mounts up was rotted, completely rotted away. But that's basically all that holds this engine in place. And once you remove those back two bolts down the back of the motor or engine, and the front motor mount is removed, this can pretty much be plucked, provided you unhooked a few of the things I showed you earlier. Now, where those rear engine mounts sat were right here. If I would have been paying closer attention and I didn't realize this, these bolts came in from the bottom. And they sit in a little pocket here so they can't rotate, so you can tighten the nut down. But if I'd have taken both of these, which I did, I took the nuts off, but if I'd have knocked the bolts out, I didn't know if they were bolts or studs, honestly, until I got it out and they both fell in the bottom of the boat. But this will allow me to knock these out, and the engine could have came forward and easily cleared this area up here. So as you can see here, I've already started removing a lot of the different componentries. This was a piece that was bolted down there. I've got one more bolt or nut, bolt to back out right in this area, right about here-ish. And I've got all the other 5 of the 6 removed, or the nuts removed, either bolts or nuts or whatever removed, and I'm gonna try to pull this off the inside so I can pull the gimbal housing off the back side of the boat. I've already removed the steering linkage. Steering linkage hooked up right here. This is what you'd use for steering your gimbal. Goes through your steering cable here, hooks on with a bar like this, where it sits in here, hooks on down there. Pretty simple overall, but there's a lot to keep track of if you plan on taking this apart and putting it back together. I've also already removed the hydraulic pump. You know, I've had a big mystery about why these hydraulic pumps quit working. And I shouldn't say quit working, but why they stop holding the trim up. I haven't seen too many of an older boat where you trim up the outdrive and it hangs there and stays there under hydraulic pressure. It seems to always bleed back. If anybody has a clue as to why that always happens, clue me in. But I think in the future here, I'm going to disassemble a couple of different models of these and see if there's a fix that a guy could perform. Because the pumps seem to always pump, as long as you have fluid in them. And but they don't seem to hold. I have a feeling there's a check valve. Maybe there isn't a check valve for the hydraulic pressure. Maybe it is because you go forward and reverse, that it's just counting on the tightness of the pump itself to slowly not let it leak back past. So I don't know. I just don't know what I don't know. Now yesterday evening, it was too dark pretty much to do any filming. When you film in too much low light with this camera, the picture gets real grainy, and I didn't want to do that to you folks. I've stripped all the dash components out of here and the whole wiring harness. And I did that for a specific reason. My goal is to put that engine that I just pulled out of this boat on a stand and be able to hook up the wires, the whole wiring harness on it, and put a battery to it and start it on the engine stand using that cluster. Now, the interesting part, I'm going to do some more investigating to find out if it is true, which I think it is. And here again, I'm not sure if this is going to show up very well, but this is your plug. It has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Has 8 plug-ins right here that your wiring harness plugs into that connects your dash. We're talking tachometer, oil pressure, water temp, starter key ignition. It connects all that to this engine. I'm pretty sure this is standardized on all the Mercuries. And that being the case, which will be cool, is once I create this wiring harness, let's call it just an engine jump pack, so to speak, that I can plug this connector that I'm going to have into any one of these Mercruisers that I'm playing around with, hook up the starter cable, hook up the ground, and I can fire one of these motors up and also be able to monitor the oil pressure, the water temperature, the RPMs of this engine while I'm playing around with it on an engine stand. Does that make sense? That's the goal here. But we do know we have an excellent engine, so I'm going to take this and put it on my stand, store it inside my shop. If I keep it in my shop all winter, I don't have to worry about winterizing. Now, winterizing is a good thing versus it sitting in its own water and juices all winter. That we can put some RV antifreeze through here, flush it out, so that at least it's sitting in RV antifreeze, which I think has a little bit of rust inhibitor built in, so your cast iron block doesn't sit there and rust all winter, and then when you fire it up, you see all that orange rusty water come out. It might help preserve it just a little bit longer. Alrighty folks, say goodbye to the 1973 Larson. We have everything pulled out of it we needed. We got obviously new hubs, bearings, and let's call it new old tires that'll get us to the dumping back. We're getting ready to go purge this trailer, bring the trailer back here, and maybe do a little work on it sometime. So say goodbye to the 73 Larson. You've been a lot of fun, bud. What we're going to be starting out today, all my Hawaiian shirts aren't conducive to welding. They seem to, they burn, they melt. They're very comfortable in the heat, but they don't handle this kind of heat. So we're starting off with a t-shirt today because we're going to start off welding. I'm building a couple of, let's call them engine stands, but these are different. This isn't your normal traditional engine stand we're thinking about. The Mercruiser engines are starting to pile up out there. I'm starting to collect a couple, and I need a way to store them, slash work on them, slash being able to move them around in my shop when they're in my way. So I ended up with a couple of these carts, so to speak, that had wire sides and stuff like that on it, and I took them apart. They had really super duty, heavy duty casters on them, and so what I did is I cut it apart. I'm using the bottom platform. I'm welding the caster bases back on. These casters actually have bolt-on flanges, so I'm welding the flange back onto the cart. Before it was kind of like not really where I wanted it. It didn't sit like I wanted. I'm hoping to be able to take this thing, it's wide enough this way, I measure it in this way, that I can actually sit two Mercruiser 2.5 liters or 3 liter engines on here, kind of Siamesed back to back together. Where I have all the important, let's call it valve adjustments. Where's my voice going? A couple of valve adjustments, things you can do with it sitting on there, the fuel pump, I'm looking over here to my right because there's an engine sitting here, oil filter, fuel pump, cap and rotor, all that stuff's accessible. The carburetor's on top, so that's easy enough to pull off if you're messing with it. The alternator kind of hangs out there. Not a lot to do on the carburetor and the alternator side of the engine as there is to do on the opposite end. So I'm going to set this up. We're going to get it welded together. I got a couple of engines out there on the concrete that's been recently pulled. And once I get this welded, we'll take it out there and I'm going to set the engines on it and see how that's going to play for me. So let's get busy welding. And then we can get those engines in here and start playing around with some other stuff. There's a 3 liter that I pulled. Haven't ran it. I brought it. I bought the boat here, pulled the motor, and yeah, don't know if it runs. Let's get it on one of these, get it in here so we can start tinkering and exploring what's going on with it. And we'll see if we can make it run. See if we got another good runner like we did out of that old 73 Larson. All right, gonna get busy welding. We'll see you on the other side of welding. Alrighty, now that we've got the old boat disposed of properly at the landfill. Just to give you an idea around here, the landfill to dump a boat of that nature, I threw the seats and a few other things out of another old boat into it. They charge $45 a ton to dispose of a boat like that. So what I do is I go to the dump with it on there like that, take the straps off, put it in 4 low, back up fast, hit the brakes, boat slides off the trailer, I drive away, pay my bill, and I go look for more boats. Which there is a couple more coming up here. So, gonna talk over what I'm gonna show you in a little bit of time lapse here. What you see this sitting on right now is something I put together. I'd say put together, something I tore apart. I had this cage thing that had heavy duty casters underneath it, and it was a collapsible something or another. So I cut it apart, welded the casters back on the bottom, and turns out I can actually set and support 2 engines on it. And I got the 2.5 liter out of the Larson, and we got this 3 liter 140 horse that came out of another boat that I'll be covering here shortly. This is one that we had running beautifully before we pulled it. This is one that I pulled that's never ran since I've had it here for the past few weeks. Haven't ran it. I don't know how long it's been since it's ran, but we're going to go through it. I'm going to see if I can get this running on the stand. I know I can get this one running on the stand. I just got to plug the wiring harness back in and turn the key. This one didn't have a key, didn't have a whole bunch of other stuff. I did salvage the harness out of it, but we'll get to that one later. So now I got a lot more work ahead of me because now I've got to get this. I've just tested this out here, but I got to empty off my old utility trailer because I got to use it to pick these back up, set them on the utility trailer, wheel them around to my shop, put the cart in the shop, put these back on the cart, bolt them down, and then I can move freely about the shop and hang out with the other outboards and, you know, just have a nice little boat powering community in my shop. All right, I've got some cleaning up to do here. I hope you folks enjoy this video, and I want to tell you something. If you followed me this far, I want to let you in on, I mentioned a while back that, you know, if you had to buy a new outdrive, how much they cost. They're expensive. And I made the comment that, you know, sometimes you can buy a whole boat or several boats for a pretty reasonable price and then get the parts you need off of it cheaper than you can buy new. Well, that's what I did here. I proved my point. Not once, not twice, but 3 times so far. And I'll tell you what I did. And that's going to be coming up in other videos. But this Larson is the one I bought for $300. Boat, motor, trailer. Outdrive hanging on the back of it. Drug it home. Yeah, it took me a little effort to get it home because of the axle problems we dealt with. But got this engine running. I've got a what I'd call an excellent conditioned engine as far as the compression is there. I got a couple of tappet lifters that I might need to replace, but I'm not worried about that. This thing will run a long time as is, trust me. So, and I ran new oil in the outdrive. The outdrive seems to be in pretty good shape. We wouldn't really know 110% it was good until you put it in the water, put it under load. But just from what I can see and how it shifts, the way it sounds when it shifts in forward reverse, sounds pretty good. So that was $300 for that purchase, and this is what I ended up with, right? I disposed of the boat, cost me $24. About another, let's call it $25 in fuel altogether to retrieve the boat, dump the boat, and all that fun stuff. I pulled the trailer into the front yard. I didn't have any papers for any of this, and in some areas, depending on where you live, you can get license plates for your trailers that you don't have paperwork for. Some places you can't. Here, you're able to if you go through the right process. So I put the trailer in the front yard, took a couple pictures of it, sold the trailer for $200. No lie. So now I'm about $150 in to having a really good spare 2.5 liter, and I've got a gearbox, and I got some gauges at work. I've got just quite a few things that, you know, for my 150. What's going on behind me? Oh, dogs are having fun. Anyway, folks, just wanted to close out this video and close out the Larson and close out what my thoughts were on why I did what I did. And we're going to get busy having some more fun. So let me get my trailer emptied and I can start a whole nother video. I got another boat over here that is, let's call it 48 years old. And we're going to dig into that one real quick. Now, if you're seeing this, it doesn't mean, this video doesn't mean that the Cobalt videos have stopped. I've got some things on order for the Cobalt. We've got, I would call quite a bit of work to do on the Cobalt. You know, as great of a find and as great of a value and as great of a survivor it is, it still needs some TLC. I'm the guy to give it to it because I got some ideas to make it better than it is now, but probably not as good as it was when it was brand new. But I doggone it, there's some things I can make better than it was when it was brand new. You're gonna see that in an upcoming video. Hey, Oliver, come here, buddy. Come here. Come here, come say hi. Mercury, come say hi. This is Mercury. He's about 1.5 years old, standard poodle. He's a good old boy. And here's Oliver. This is his dad. Ain't it? Yep. And Lucy, which is Mercury's brother, is inside. She's the brownish silver poodle. All right, my wife's over there doing plant things. She's, yep, they're playing. All right, guys and gals. You guys get out there and have some fun. If it ain't broke, fix it till it is. We'll be back shortly. I'm making a commitment to myself. And I'm letting you guys know, if you watched it this far, you're going to know it. And if you've been watching me for about the past month, you're going to know it. I'm trying to do and bring more and keep good content coming. So I need you guys to like every video, share with who you can, and subscribe as much as possible. Yeah, you can only subscribe once, but share and get other people to subscribe. I'm trying to drop a video 3 times a week. I'm trying to drop a video on, Sunday mornings, Wednesday mornings, and Friday mornings is when I'm dropping videos, and I'm trying to bring a variety of content. Yes, 90% of my stuff's going to be boat related, but you're going to see me fix a lawnmower, you're going to see me fix a car, and you're going to see me do maybe some odd chores around the house every now and then. But this is just sharing a day in the life of me. But this is the hobby, the boats and the outboards and the inboards and the in-between boards and the middle boards and the rotten floorboards. This is what we're going to be doing. Good stuff, good stuff. Yeah, we're going to do I got some gel coat work to do coming up. I've got, you guys have left some great comments out there. I much appreciate those comments. And it was, I'm going to show you another slick trick right here, right now. If you've hung out this far, you're going to see this slick trick. And I'm going to repeat this slick trick. Now this is the outdrive on the back of the Cobalt here. And as most of these old outdrives, they'll sag. And man, the lawnmower sprayed grass all over this. These things, the hydraulics will not hold because they're old. And I'm going to get to the bottom of that. I'm going to figure out how that works. And I'm going to figure out how to teach you guys how to cure that problem. Not permanently, but at least for a good long time, hopefully. But what you see right here looks like a gray hydraulic cylinder. Is not. There's a person that left a comment. He gave me permission to use his name. Now this gentleman's name is Dave Kimbler. He's been a long-time subscriber, a long-time commenter, and shares some tech tips with me here and there. And I read the comment that morning, and I'm like, I got to go do this right now before I leave the house. This is a piece of PVC pipe, and it is cut just over center, so it will actually snap onto this ram. Whoops. So the cool part is you're leaving the lake or you're going to the lake, raise your outdrive up, snap that on. You don't have to lower it down. if it's leaking, it'll lower down. The nice thing is this can sit here and float, just like that's doing right there. And it's not going to blow off because you just snapped it on. You can hear that snap. And you see how easy it is to remove. The cool part is when it relaxes and it starts to leak like it normally does, it'll just come down and rest against your PVC. And once it's resting against the PVC, guess what? It won't go any further. And that way you don't have to have that awkward, and let's call it embarrassing, situation where you've got a strap going from here to here, or from your pull, you know, your toe lugs or whatever, to this area to keep the stern drive up. This way, this looks almost all natural, so to speak, except for when it says, you know, 3/4 inch PVC pipe. So find yourself a piece of PVC pipe. I took it down my bandsaw and I just kind of ripped it down the bandsaw over center, just past center. That way you got that snapping action. I thought that was a pretty cool idea. Now, when this is at home and not in use, I take those off and let this relax so your boot and everything here has a chance to relax a little bit. It doesn't stay fully stretched out for long periods of time. Anyway, tech tip from Dave Kimbler. Appreciate your viewership, appreciate your comments, and keep it coming, bud. Well, as always, I hope you guys found this video informative and helpful. And I hope you enjoyed the drone footage at the end. I get a lot of good compliments about the drone footage. There again, let's keep this channel growing and growing so I can keep bringing you more content. The only thing holding me back is cash. And if you guys subscribe and you guys watching, and you know the commercial content can be a little bit, you know, aggravating at times, but that's what pays this hobby's bills a little bit. Right now I'm subsidizing it by quite a bit. So, but yeah, thank you guys for everything you do. I just want to, I can't thank you enough for, you know, you guys watching the videos, subscribing. Just recently we cracked 16,000 subscribers here. We're going to keep growing and going. I want to keep bringing you content. You guys keep encouraging me to do more, so that's what I want to do. As you can see back here, we got another, let's call it $300, because that's what I paid for it, project. And we're going to see what we can do with that $300. I told you what we did with this $300 at this point in time, so we'll see what we can do with that one. This one here, right in front of the old 2.5, I ain't kidding you, $300. Boat motor trailer, $300. And so if I can do something similar to what I did with this one 3 times, means it's got to be something that can be done, right? Anyway, it's a good way to get some old Iron Dukes in the backyard, and I can have some fun with it, and I can show you guys some fun stuff. And a span of a few years. This is a 1984. This was a 1973. I'm pretty sure on the back of that one, it's got a license plate on it. I can't find any other information on this boat as far as the year, but it's got 1776 and 1976. Would you really screw that to the back of a boat if it wasn't a 1976? Yeah, that makes sense. That's what I'm gonna call it. That's a 1976. All right, get out there and have some fun. This is Michael saying, if it ain't broke, fix it till it is. Keep the wet side down.